You ever buy a stretch of land just to get away from people, and then realize people don't know how to leave you alone? That's how this all started. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for peace. 39 acres of Arizona dirt, sunrises that burned the sky orange, and not a single neighbor close enough to borrow sugar. That's the dream, right? Just me, my dog Ranger, and a flagpole taller than common sense. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because I bet more than a few of you have tangled with someone like this. The house was modest, 1-story, long porch, windows that looked out toward nowhere. I had a few horses, a small barn, and an old M24 rifle that hadn't seen daylight since Afghanistan. That rifle was locked up in a safe, gathering dust, just like I planned to do in retirement. I wasn't itching for a fight. I was done with all that, but peace only works when people respect the fence line. And Karen? She didn't believe in fences. The first sign was a letter, fancy HOA seal, gold foil trim, like they were mailing out wedding invitations instead of threats. It claimed I owed fines for non-compliant decor, said my fencing was aggressive. Then came another and another. I nearly spit my coffee when I read one line: failure to address these violations will result in escalation. That's when I knew. This wasn't a clerical error, it was a declaration of war. And Karen? She wasn't just any neighbor, she was the self-appointed queen of an HOA I didn't even belong to. I checked the county records myself. I was outside their jurisdiction, but that didn't stop her. Because people like Karen never stop at the line, they redraw it. I was in the barn that night, working on an old engine block, country radio humming low in the background. Ranger was curled in the corner, half asleep but never fully off duty. The desert was quiet, eerily so. That's when I felt it. You don't hear danger first, you feel it. The way the air tightens, the way silence starts sounding like something's missing. Then came the crunch of gravel, followed by the unmistakable sound of glass shattering. Rear window, backside of the barn, loud, intentional. I didn't hesitate, I moved like I was back. Overseas, smooth, trained, focused. Cut the lights, stayed low. Through the broken glass, I saw her. Pink tracksuit, big sunglasses, metal baseball bat gripped like she was slugging for the Yankees. Karen. She wasn't yelling about property lines this time. She was screaming about code enforcement, about visual harmony, about how my flagpole was triggering to the board. Her voice bounced off the rafters like a bad sermon. Then she kicked in the door, didn't knock, didn't ask, just stormed in, swinging that bat like she was tearing down drywall. Ranger didn't move. He knew the drill. I raised the rifle, just enough to put a red dot square in the middle of her chest. She froze, not because she was scared, but because for the first time she wasn't in control. I stepped from the shadows and said, calm as a Sunday sunrise, "You've got 3 seconds to explain why you just broke into my home with a weapon." "Start talking," her voice cracked. She shrieked about community authority, about how I had to comply, about how she was going to correct the violations by force if she had to. She didn't know it yet, but she'd just stepped into a surveillance zone built by a sniper. She kept yelling, somewhere between a PTA meltdown and a war cry. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Just flipped the switch behind me. The barn door locked with a metallic thud. Cameras activated. Motion sensors lit up, in silent confirmation across the rafters. Karen was sealed in. Center stage, every second of her tantrum streaming in crystal clear 1080p. I leaned against the wall and let her flail. She tried to yank open the door. It didn't budge. Then she swung the bat at one of the overhead cameras, missed, by a foot and slipped on a patch of oil I'd forgotten to mop up. She hit the floor hard, arms flailing like a turtle on its back. Ranger barked once, mocking almost. I couldn't help but chuckle, not because it was funny, but because this woman still thought she was the predator. I hit the intercom.
Karen, you broke into my home with a weapon. You're being recorded. The sheriff is on his way. You can keep screaming or you can sit down and wait. She started screeching about her rights, about how she represented the community, that
she was authorized to take action. She threw out buzzwords like code enforcement and compliance warrant. Nonsense. None of it real. That's the thing about people like Karen. They don't understand how real power works. She thought a letterhead and a clipboard gave her authority. She didn't know what it meant to actually stand on someone's land and try to impose control. Not here, not with me. 15 minutes later, the sheriff pulled up. Deputy Morales. Solid guy, more used to breaking up bar fights and chasing runaway goats than arresting pastel-wrapped vigilantes. He watched the footage, took one look at Karen smeared in oil and delusion, and sighed. "Ma'am," he said flatly, "this ain't
HOA jurisdiction. This is trespassing." Karen didn't go quietly. She shrieked all the way to the cruiser, threatening lawsuits, quoting non-existent bylaws, yelling something about setting a dangerous precedent for neighborhood order.
Morales cuffed her gently and loaded her into the back seat like a toddler mid-tantrum. As they pulled away, she looked back over her shoulder, eyes blazing. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I just smiled. "You already do? That should have been the end." It wasn't. 3 days later, the dust hadn't even settled when I spotted it, a buzzing little quadcopter drone hovering just above my north pasture, not high enough to be accidental, low, deliberate. A lazy metal vulture with a camera eye. I watched it follow the edge of my solar panels, then veer off toward the barn. I didn't shoot it down. Tempting, sure, but no, I let it fly. I let Ranger track it with his eyes and let my trail cams track it with time-stamped footage. Because now I wasn't reacting, I was building a case. That afternoon, I drove into town. Picked up feed, fencing wire, some fresh jerky. When I came back, there it was. A bright orange notice of violation zip-tied to my gate. It claimed unauthorized livestock activity and failure to maintain aesthetically appropriate fencing. I nearly choked laughing, but what really got me, what flipped the switch, was the little logo in the bottom corner. HOA Enforcement Unit, not HOA. HOI. Karen's pathetic attempt at sounding official after being told, in no uncertain terms, that her board had no power here. I tore the sign down and tossed it into the fire pit. Then I poured a drink and reviewed the surveillance footage, 2 of them this time. Mid-50s matching polos, one had knee braces, the other had a clipboard and a selfie stick. They weren't done. But neither was I. Next morning, I found 3 more fake violations stuffed in my mailbox. One of them claimed my American flag clashed with the community's visual color palette. Another said my fencing was hostile in posture. The third, it tried to fine me $200 a day for non-compliance with leadership expectations. Each letter signed personally by Karen. She was doubling down after getting arrested, after the drone, after everything. That's when I stopped playing defense. I called Eli old friend, ex-Intel. Now a quiet guy in Montana who still builds surveillance systems in his garage and owes me a favor or 3. Within 24 hours, my ranch was a digital fortress. Thermal cams in the tree lines, directional mics disguised as bird feeders, pressure sensors buried along the fence, so sensitive they'd ping when a coyote sneezed. But tech alone wouldn't stop Karen. I needed proof she was running this circus. That's when Miss Linda showed up, peach cobbler in one hand, fat binder in the other. "Thought you might want dessert and dirt," she said, with a wink. Turns out, sweet little Linda, former NSA, analyst. She'd been tracking Karen for months. Inside that binder, screenshots of Karen forging violation letters, HOA chat logs discussing neutralizing non-compliant residents, even budget records showing Karen using board funds to install Wi-Fi cameras pointed straight into people's homes. One folder was labeled "Coal Problem."
"I guess that was me. She's not trying to enforce rules," Linda said, flipping through another page. "She's trying to provoke you, push you to act out, get you labeled unstable so she can force legal action." I sat back, jaw tight.
Rage held in check. Karen wasn't just obsessed. She was orchestrating a slow-motion ambush, hoping I'd crack first, but I don't crack. I returned fire, quiet, precise, and with a plan. That weekend, I gave Karen a show. I opened my gates, set up, shop near the road, repainted my barn fence in big, bold strokes, flag shirt on, coffee in hand, solar-powered LED sign flashing, private property, not HO land, every 10 seconds, all of it legal, all of it bait. Sure enough, beige SUV rolled by. Karen slowed, just enough to snap photos, jaw clenched like she was chewing gravel. That night, her foot soldiers came back. 2 men in matching polos, same pair from the selfie enforcement squad. They crept through my eastern field, flashlights low, aiming to tear down the new signs, but they didn't see the infrared beam, or the tripwire, or the silent trigger rigged to the barn lights. The moment they crossed the boundary, boom. Floodlights flared on, sirens howled, pre-recorded messages blared from every speaker. "You are trespassing on private land. Law enforcement has been
notified." One of them dropped his clipboard and sprinted straight into a cactus patch. The other tripped over a tension wire I'd strung low, hit the dirt hard, face first. Ranger barked twice just for effect. I stood on the porch with a thermos
in hand, not even trying to hide the grin. Watched them scramble into their truck like rats under a spotlight. The next morning, there was a note under my gate, no envelope. Just a plain slip of paper, folded once. "You're escalating this. You'll regret it." That's when I knew it wasn't about violations anymore. Karen wasn't enforcing order. She was waging war, not for justice, not even for control, but because, in her delusional mind, losing face was worse than losing everything. And she wasn't planning to stop. She was preparing to strike harder, so I struck first, quietly, just like I was trained. 2 nights later, the desert got too quiet. No drones, no fake fines, no HOA foot patrols. That's the most dangerous part of any fight. The silence. It's not peace. It's a breath before the punch. I didn't wait. I rigged decoy sensors near the barn, ones only I could interpret. Left marbles in the gravel, old trick from overseas. You step on them, they crunch just enough. No alarm. But Ranger hears it. I hear it. And nobody else notices. At 3:14 a.m., a sensor chirped. West side. I slipped out the back, Ranger at my heel, both of us quiet as fog, circled around the shed, took high ground, pulled up the feed on my tablet. There they were, 2 shadows crouched near the horse pen, one with a crowbar, the other, bigger, carried a duffel. I recognized the first one, Doug, board member. Failed the police academy twice, but still played mall cop in his head. The second guy, hired muscle, tall, broad, didn't belong. They weren't here to talk. They were here to destroy flagpole, solar panels. Maybe even the barn didn't matter because I was already in position. I didn't unholster my sidearm, didn't need to. I activated audio protocol. 3, my old squad's training drills shouted commands, static, chaos, boomed from hidden speakers, Arabic mixed with English, overlapping. Signals designed to confuse and disorient. It was psychological warfare, and it worked. Doug froze like a deer in headlights. The big guy reached for his belt. Then came Ranger. He launched from the dark like a rocket, didn't bite, just cornered the big one by the trough, growling deep.
"Low," warning him. Doug bolted. The big guy dropped the bag. I stepped from the shadows, flashlight under my chin. "Drop the crowbar, Doug." He looked like a kid caught egg in a house. "You can't do this," he stammered. "Watch me," I said. They ran. Doug tripped over his own boots. The hired goon slipped in mud and left his duffel behind. Ranger barked once, low and satisfied, as
They vanished into the dark, but I wasn't chasing them. I was building something bigger. By sunrise, I had the bag open, tools, bolt cutters, gloves, even a printed map of my property. I logged it all, added it to the growing archive, timestamps, video files, audio, even Karen's handwritten threat. Then I called Grant, used to be with the reserves. Now he digs through legal files like a raccoon through trash. I gave him one job, follow the buy money. By lunch, he had results. Karen had used HOA funds, dues from the neighborhood, to hire a private compliance unit. On paper, it looked like landscaping. In reality, a P.O. box, a shell company, and Karen signing every check. Didn't
surprise me.
But now I had ammo. I compiled a packet, photos, invoices, witness statements, even a video of Karen directing her goons from her SUV with the engine still running. I made 3 copies, sent one to the sheriff's office, one to the county clerk,
And one to a local blogger who specialized in small-town corruption. Didn't sign it, just included a sticky note. She picked the wrong sniper.
2 days later, the article dropped. Local HOA president under fire for fraud, harassment, and private security scheme. Karen's face, glam, shot from the HOA welcome page, plastered front and center. The internet did the rest. Neighbors flooded. The comment section, the HOA board scrambled. 2 members resigned overnight, but not Karen. No, she doubled down, showed up at my gate smug as ever, flanked by some guy in a blazer, pretending to be a property appraiser. "We're just reviewing easement lines, Cole," she said sweetly. "No harm." She didn't see Morales pulling up behind her. But I did, and I smiled. Morales stepped out of his cruiser, calm as ever. "Mom, you were told to stay off this property," he said, tone dry enough to strip paint. Karen's smile twitched. "We're not on his property. We're conducting a legal review of the shared boundary line." The so-called appraiser glanced at me, then at Ranger, who was sitting beside me, tail still, eyes locked. Something told me the guy realized he'd been fed a lie. He muttered something about needing to check with the office and made a tactical retreat to his car. Karen wasn't done. She jabbed a finger at me. "He's dangerous. He has weapons. He's unstable. I have emails." "Mom," Morales interrupted, "we've reviewed your emails. We've seen the footage. You're under investigation for harassment, fraud,
And possibly conspiracy. This isn't a debate." She froze. For the first time since this whole circus began, Karen didn't have a comeback, just silence. Morales gestured to his cruiser.
Let's go." As he walked her toward the car, She threw one last glance over her shoulder. No words, just hatred, raw and rattling behind her eyes. I didn't gloat, didn't raise my voice. Just stood there with Ranger, arms crossed, watching. The Queen of HOA delusion finally get escorted off her imaginary throne. The board expelled her that same week. Her name vanished from the HOA website like it had never been there. They issued a formal apology to the neighborhood, promised reforms, promised transparency. But here's the truth, there's no real victory in this kind of fight. I didn't feel proud. I felt tired that it had to go this far, that someone so entitled could weaponize bureaucracy and fear and try to steamroll her neighbors into submission. I bought this land for peace, and I had to earn it through war. 2 weeks later, the quiet came back. Not the uneasy kind either. The real kind, the kind that settles deep in your bones. No more drones, no more fake notices, no more pastel SUVs crawling past the fence line with their headlights off. Ranger noticed it first. He stopped pacing the porch, just sat beside me in the evenings, ears relaxed, eyes half closed like he finally believed it too. The new HOA board issued a statement, said they were auditing everything, launching new elections. Translation? They were trying to save face before. The lawsuit started flying. The sheriff came by just once. Morales brought coffee, told me, "Glad you kept your cool. Not many would have." I nodded, didn't say much. There wasn't anything left to say, but something did surprise me. One Sunday morning, a group of neighborhood kids showed up at my gate. Parents, trailing. Behind them, sheepish, like they weren't sure if I'd open the door or tell them to scram. I opened it. The smallest kid handed me a wooden plaque, hand-carved. "Thank you for protecting our community."
From your quiet friends. There were little horses etched into the corners, and one dog, big ears, big grin, wearing a superhero cape. Ranger, obviously. Didn't cry. But my throat got tight because in all the chaos, I'd almost forgotten why I bought this land in the first place.
Not just to escape, but to protect something, a place, a way of life. My line in the sand. I mounted the plaque on the barn wall that night. As for Karen, pending trial, house arrest, court-ordered psych eval, and a lifetime ban from any HOA involvement. But I kept every file, every recording, every report, because people like her, they don't vanish, they just hide, and I'll be ready if one ever dares to knock again.